If you could join me in welcoming our good governor, Spencer Cox.
Thank you, Mr. Majority Leader. That's way too kind. I hope he remembers those things when we hit the next legislative session. Thank you. Jefferson is a good friend, and we're so lucky to have him here in our state working with the Innovation Center and the great work that he's doing there that I think is really transformational. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm excited to be able to spend some time with you today. I appreciate your interest in this topic. Many of you work in this field, and it's of course the thing that everybody is talking about. And I just got back from the Money 2020 conference down in Las Vegas. Some of you may be familiar with the largest fintech conference in the world. We had fintech executives from all over the world that were there, and it was a really interesting opportunity. I got to be on the main stage there to talk about fintech in Utah, and it's fascinating because Utah has become renowned as one of the fintech centers of the world. We're getting mentioned in the same breath as places like London and New York and Miami, and it's very unexpected for people. And I always get the question, why is Utah leading in fintech? That doesn't make sense to people unless you've lived here and understand our history with financial services and technology. Just last week, we were named the #1 state for manufacturing in the United States. The largest increase in manufacturing over the last 5 years happened right here in Utah. Again, unless you've lived here and understand what we're doing and how that impacts things, you wouldn't think that Utah would be the leader there, and that is true in so many other areas, including, as you've heard from Margaret and Representative Moss and others, including leading in AI and AI policy development. And I wanted to talk just a little bit about that today. As I was down at this conference, of course, AI was a big conversation when it comes to fintech and what's happening there. And it doesn't matter what industry you're in, AI is playing a role or will play a role. And look, this is not my background. I come from the telecom world, so I guess it's kind of my background a little bit, at least on the data center side. But it's certainly something I've been fascinated about. I've read, I've studied as much as I possibly can, trying to understand. And what I've figured out is that basically, I truly believe that AI is going to solve all of our problems, and at the same time destroy the world. So we're in this really fascinating kind of no man's land right now. Which of those two things is going to happen? I have some deep concerns. I think all of you do. And if anybody who is in the AI field does not have concerns, you should be very worried about that person. And yet we should also be hopeful and optimistic. Some of you have heard me share this before, but one of my favorite authors, constitutional scholar Yuval Levin, talks about he hates the word optimism. And especially in kind of the context of what's happening in the political world. There's nothing going on this week at all. But trying to figure out, are you garbage? Am I garbage? I don't know what's happening. But he said, I hate the word optimism. He says basically that optimism is a vice and not much different than pessimism. He says that that optimism is this idea that good things are just going to happen. And he says good things in the history of the world have never just happened. They don't. And he says he prefers the word hopeful instead of optimism. He says hopeful is the virtue that sits between the vices of optimism and pessimism. Hopeful means that we make good things happen. And so that's why I'm so grateful that you all are here. You see, we get to make decisions about AI and what it means. And as your elected representatives, our job is to make decisions that help protect the public from all the bad things that could happen from AI. But at the same time, we don't want to stifle all the amazing things that could happen with AI. And the problem is, government is not really good at doing that. Now we do it, and usually through trial and error. And certainly we have a history of eventually getting regulations right in different industries. But industry is changing so rapidly, and again, no more so than artificial intelligence. I mean, if we just go back 2 years, even it's insane to see what has happened with large language models just in the very, very recent history. Things that we would have thought impossible are now routine. I mean, I've had political ads go out that are my face and my voice, but aren't me. It's amazing what's happening out there, and not at all problematic. But that's happening so rapidly, and yet in Utah we have a legislature that meets for 45 days, and they don't meet until January of the next year, right? And they're done in March, and I'm great. That's plenty of time. I'm great with that. No offense. I think we agree that that's plenty of time. But if you're in an industry that is changing day to day, it's kind of impossible to have the type of government that we need to protect people and encourage innovation. And so the question comes, and when I became governor, we sat down with our team and said, can we innovate in government? Is that a thing? And we always want to be cautious. Look, if you want, we had a government that was incredibly nimble and responsive, right? It's called a king. They can make decisions every day. And we decided we didn't like that. And so we very intentionally decided that we were going to build a government that was not going to be like the private sector. We're going to build a government. When I was running my telecom company, I'd wake up in the morning with a good idea, and I could implement that good idea by that night. And everybody just did it, and it was awesome. And I became governor, and I have these great ideas. And if I'm lucky, in March of next year, some bastardized version of that good idea will actually get implemented, right? I had a board of directors of 11 people when I ran a telecom. I have a board of directors of 104 people now in the legislature who all have their ideas and are, again, elected by the people to implement their ideas too, right? And so we decided we wanted a government that was very slow, a government that was very deliberate, a government that would not act too quickly. We decided intentionally that we wanted a government that was very divided, that no one would have too much power, that you would actually have to convince a coalition of people, probably many of whom don't agree with you, to get anything done. It seems like a terrible way to run anything. And yet, it's the best way, I promise you, to run a government. And I'm so grateful we have that. And so we have to be careful when we think about innovating in government. But we sat down with people like Representative Moss, with legislators who could see this, the vision. We sat down with the private sector, and we said, is there a better way to do this with an emerging technology that would allow us to get the best of both worlds, to not have the heavy hand of government that is stifling innovation and preventing new jobs and new ideas, curing cancer, I mean, all of these things, and yet still be able to not destroy the world? Could we do that? And we came up with this policy lab idea where we would basically embed the private sector with government to work hand in hand. We would hire somebody. We would hire somebody who is really good at this stuff, because we're not. We recognize our own flaws. I should not be making decisions about large language models. I took the LSAT to go to law school because there was no math on the LSAT. Right? I'm not the guy you want talking about engineering marvels. And then could we again bring the regulators and the innovators together with their ideas to figure out together how to do this, to sign agreements with each other that would allow you to go and innovate without the fear of government coming down and destroying all of your investment. And again, at the same time, giving us some insight into what you're trying to do, just so we can make sure that it's safe and productive. And I truly think it's revolutionizing the regulatory sphere in our country. We've had an opportunity to share this, all of us, with other leaders in other states, and they're very, very interested. The companies that we're talking to are incredibly interested. They're looking for some certainty. There's nothing worse, for those of you in the private sector, you understand this. There is something worse than no, And the only thing worse than no is, I don't know, maybe. That's the worst possible answer you can get. The best answer is yes, and here's why and how we're going to do it. And that's what we're trying to do. I've worked with my team, not just in AI, but in every industry, to change the way we look at government regulation when it comes to the private sector, to change a mindset from the trying to catch people doing something wrong, which is what so much of government regulatory schemes are like. It's like, how do we catch this person doing something wrong? That's a truly perverse way to run government, and leads to a lot of really bad decisions. Instead of, how can we help people do things right? And we're still going to catch the bad guys, and there are some in this space. There's no question about it. But the vast majority of companies, the vast majority of employees are just trying to do things the right way. They want to do things the right way. We might make mistakes. So how can we as a government take that mindset that our job as regulators isn't to catch you doing something wrong, but to help you do it the right way? See how that shifts things? And that's what we're trying to do with AI right now, is let's help each other figure out how to do it the right way. Now, I'm also really impressed with the education, our system of higher learning in this state, and the things that they're doing. I want to give a shout out to the University of Utah, who's really taken this on. They're working very closely with, again, leaders in industry to understand how we can utilize AI in higher learning, but also have innovation happening in our campus spaces, and make sure that Utah is a leader in this space. Love what they're doing. We're trying to do it in government as well, right? I mean, AI has the opportunity to help us transform government in very powerful ways. We have Alan Fuller, I think, is here with us somewhere right here. Alan, thank you. Chief Technology Officer and the head of the Department of Technology Services for the state, who's been working with everybody's favorite regulatory department, the tax, our tax friends, and they at the department we're using large language models to help our people who are answering calls from those who are having struggles filling out their tax forms, right? So we're absolutely utilizing that in a way that is going to improve the lives of the people here in the state of Utah, and that's a fun thing for us to be able to do. You've all heard about what Representative Moss and his team are doing with the Innovation Center here in our state, and our ability again to help companies, startup companies, get the funding that they need to make these ideas come to fruition. The last thing that I just want to talk about there, we at this conference, I was asked about why Utah is the startup state, why we were named the best state to start a business, this entrepreneurial ideal that we harbor here, and where does that come from, and why is it that Utah is so much more entrepreneurial than other places? And it's a fun question to think about. I'm sure we probably all have different ideas, but there are a couple things that really stood out to me. Part of it is in our DNA, this idea of solving problems. And as someone who lives on the same farm that my great-great-great-grandfather settled 170 years ago, a place that should not have been a farm, when you come to a place where not a lot of people want to be because it's fairly inhospitable, and you have to figure it out, you become very entrepreneurial. You learn to fix things and just make things up, solve problems very quickly. And I think that's part of where it comes from. But there's a second piece of this that I think is so important. It's not just this kind of rugged individualism that settled the West. If that were true, it would be happening everywhere. And it's not happening everywhere, at least at the rates it's happening here. It was rugged individualism combined with deep community. This idea that yes, we're going to have to solve problems, but we don't have to do it alone. The U.S. Chamber of Commerce stated a few years ago that the reason Utah was the best state to do business when they named us number one, our secret sauce was collaboration. It was our willingness to work together. Sometimes we call it co-opetition. This idea that a whole bunch of people who may even be competitors in the same place are going to get together to figure out how to make life better for everyone. My favorite statistic to share with people, isn't just that we lead the nation in service and volunteering and charitable giving, although I think those are very important. It's not that we're named the #1 state in the nation overall by U.S. News and World Report 2 years in a row. My favorite statistic to share is a kind of obscure study that was done about zero-sum thinking. So zero-sum thinking, of course, is this idea that if someone else wins, I lose, right? That the economy and basically life in the United States is a pie, and some people are going to get bigger pieces, and if they get bigger pieces, other people get smaller pieces. And that's just the way life works. It's a dog-eat-dog world. It's me or you, and that if that's the case, it's going to be me. It's a very selfish way, very destructive way, a scarcity mentality way to live life. Sadly, in this study that was done in all 50 states, a majority of people in a majority of states now have a zero-sum view of the world. And I think you're seeing that in our politics today and everything else out there that is happening. There are some states that still, a majority still have a non-zero-sum mentality. And then they said, and then there's this weird state, this state called Utah that is an outlier, where they absolutely reject zero-sum thinking. In Utah, more than any other place in this country, people believe that if someone else succeeds, that's good for everyone, and that they actually want to help other people succeed. That is remarkable, and we must do everything we can to preserve that. And that's what I hope we're trying to do today. It's not a zero-sum game. We want people to be successful. The economy is not a zero-sum game. Yes, AI is going to destroy jobs. It absolutely is. And it's going to create so many more jobs. And our job is to make sure that those who struggle, who are kind of the losers in the AI world, aren't losers forever, that we help them, that we give them the tools that they need so that they can succeed in a modern society as these things are changing. That zero-sum mentality can also be found in places, and I always encourage people to reject the idea of false choices, right? Zero-sum thinking is a false choice. It's one of them, but there are so many others. One of the areas where we are being encouraged to reject or encouraged to adopt a false choice is when it comes to energy. I'm so glad that the Representative Moss brought this up. Last thing I want to share with you. What we know is that AI consumes a colossal amount of energy. It's kind of mind-boggling. Many of you probably know this, but if you don't, one AI prompt takes 10 times more energy consumption than a Google search. And these AI data centers, campuses that are being built all over the world, and there is a global arms race happening right now. Again, whether you think AI is a good thing or a bad thing, it's a thing. And if we're not doing it, other people are, and so we have to do it. One data center project proposed here in the state of Utah would use 1.4 gigawatts of power. Now, to put that into perspective, the entire state of Wyoming currently uses 900 megawatts of power. So one data center campus, 1.5 times more power than the entire state of Wyoming. The entire state of Utah runs on about 4 gigawatts of power. So that's, again, more than 25% of our energy going to one. We cannot do that right now. That is impossible. The math does not work. And by the way, the math doesn't work in most states. Just as a quick aside, I'm about out of time here, but as a quick aside, the governor of Mississippi was telling me proudly, we're getting one of these data centers. They need 1 gigawatt of power. We have that power because they have an old nuclear plant that is still active, and so they, very excited that they're going to be able to host this. I said, that's great, Tate. Tell me what you're doing with that gigawatt of power right now. Well, we're selling it on the open market. Okay, so now we're taking 1 gigawatt of power off of the open market. That's great for Mississippi. What does it mean for Utah and everywhere else in this country? It means that our energy prices are going to go up, right? They're going to skyrocket because we're not producing enough. And so whether or not we build those facilities here in Utah, they are going to be built, and it is going to impact ratepayers here in Utah. And so we have to think differently than we have before. We have to unleash energy production. We shouldn't have to choose between having enough power to do the things that we want and still having the type of environment that we care about. We have an abundance of energy here in this state and in this nation. We should be exporting our energy to our allies across the world so that they're not relying on China and Russia and our adversaries for critical minerals or for energy production. I just came back from Korea and Japan, where they are very worried about this and talking about it and asking how the United States can help them in this space. We can do this here. We have the ability we're building one of the largest solar projects in the country right now in Emory County with battery storage, because storage is important in this type of environment as well. And we have an incredible hydrogen project that's happening in central Utah, one of the largest in the world. Chevron is the main investor. Mitsubishi, I talked to them in Japan about what they're doing. We have a geothermal project that is crazy awesome right now, 400 megawatts of power and growing, that's happening out in the West Desert in Milford, that is going to change geothermal across the world. And of course, we have some of the largest natural gas reserves in the world and the cleanest burning coal in the world. Japan's going to be burning coal. They should be burning our coal, not dirtier coal from somewhere else, right? So this is the abundance mentality that we need as a country right now so that we can win the AI arms race, so that we can win the energy production race. We should get rid of this scarcity mentality that is destroying our country. We need a party, either party, I don't care. Somebody just come up with an abundance agenda for our country that is more than just tearing each other down and unleashing the awesome opportunities that exist in our country today. That's what we are about in Utah. Please be careful with your innovations. Please try to understand human nature and how devastating these things can be. I'm very worried about social media and how it's destroying our kids right now. Utah's leading the way there. AI is going to take that up to a level that is almost incomprehensible. The ability to manipulate human beings and human emotions, the ability to control our brains and just the way humans operate is pretty scary to me. But I believe in the goodness of the people of Utah. I believe that we can solve those problems here, and I believe we can do it together. I'm so grateful to live in this state. I feel like the luckiest person on earth that I get an opportunity. Look, there are 49 other governors out there that would trade places with me in a heartbeat, and I would not trade places with any one of them. And it's not because we have the best legislature, the best governor, although my mom thinks we do. It's because we have the best people on earth right here in this room. Thank you for what you're doing to make Utah the greatest state in the nation. Congratulations. Thank you.